Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
A new hearing on Monday for Donald Trump's Supreme Court pick, Brett Kavanaugh, and his accuser, Christine Blasey Ford. Moments ago, I just spoke to a Democratic senator who says the FBI investigation into this allegation should occur, though, before that hearing begins, which is now again scheduled for next week. And late today, all 10 Dems on the Judiciary Committee said the same thing in a letter to the White House asking for the FBI to get involved. Kavanaugh, of course, denies this allegation. Meanwhile, here's what the most powerful Democrat in the Senate said today.
So it is now the FBI's responsibility to investigate these claims, update the analysis to Judge Kavanaugh's background, and report back to the Senate. This has to be done by an independent, outside body. The FBI is the best one.
I'm joined by Frank Figluzzi, a former assistant director for that very FBI, and Maya Wiley back with me. Frank, what is the FBI's role? Should it be investigating this claim?
Good question. So this is unlike anything else the FBI does. A background investigation is neither fish nor fowl. It's neither a criminal investigation nor counterintelligence or national security investigation. You have a client when you conduct a background investigation, and your client is the agency from which the nomination comes. In this case, the client is the White House. To complicate things even further, this background investigation was closed. So now, as opposed to an allegation arising during a pending investigation, the client has to ask you to reopen it.
Right. So I'm going to jump in. At the risk of oversimplifying things, the FBI is sort of working with the employer to call references. And so viewers would then wonder, why are the people who are most critical, the Democrats, leaning on the FBI to do this? Do you think there's some misunderstanding here of how to adjudicate it?
I think it's got to be crystal clear in everybody's mind that the FBI needs to get the request from the White House, not from the Senate, not from the House, not from the Department of Justice, but rather from the client in this case. And not getting that request, Ari, is a little bit like the fire department in your hometown calling the mayor and saying they see smoke coming from the city council building, and the mayor says, hey, thanks for the call, but let's let the city council figure whether the building's on fire. That can't happen. And as has been said, having the best law enforcement investigative agency in the United States finish what they started. They started the background investigation, take the handcuffs off, let them get to the bottom of it in an objective, nonpartisan way. Am I thrilled about the notion of FBI agents investigating a high school incident 30 some odd years ago? No, I'm not. But it's moved well beyond that high school scenario into a situation where the nominee has categorically denied doing this. So now it goes to the heart of his veracity.
It is Tuesday, the 18th of September of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. That's right, folks, just a smidgen of Hungarian smoked hot paprika can make all the difference. Yes, indeed. Well, like, you know, the way our system works, it's nuanced, is it not? The FBI is actually precluded from investigating Kavanaugh until the White House says, yeah, we'd like you to investigate Kavanaugh further, and specifically about these allegations. Yeah, that's going to happen. And there's got to be an investigation before they put Dr. Ford and Kavanaugh, they're going to sit at the same table. These Republicans are ghouls. But we already knew that, don't we? It's not about America. It's about their own petty grip on power. That's all it has ever been about. It's only been the guise of patriotism. They don't give an F about America. Why else would they cover up the Russian rubles awash in our in Republican campaign coffers and elsewhere? National Russia Association. Maybe that's what the NRA is going to turn into. I know, it sounds like I'm a conspiracy theorist, but, you know, sometimes theories turn into fact. Oh, yeah, well, Donnie Two Scoops. You know, I hate waking up in the morning and finding out that I've got to change his moniker from Donnie Two Scoops to, I don't know. Stormy Daniels described his package. Yep. I'm going for Chanterelles, okay? That doesn't look anything like what she described his package being. Damn right. Ew. You don't want to wake up in the morning to that, no matter what gender you are. Well, what else is on the menu here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A 27-year veteran at the State Department says she was denied promotions under Trump because she could not pass the Breitbart Test. Well, she had two things going against her. One, she was a woman. And two, she was not white. ICE is giving immigrants fake documents to show up at court on dates that don't even exist. Because they're sadists. I hope these people go to jail. And when I say hope, I mean we need to actively pursue these people going to jail. And Christian fundamentalists gathering in Moldova want you to know they're not extremists or a strange people like homophobic fascists or something. Yeah. Well, after the break, we move to the chef's table, where the U.S. Space Force is estimated to only cost $13 billion in the first 5 years. $13 billion in 5 years. And a misinterpreted Bible verse is behind Republican efforts to deny food to poor people. Yeah, it's Paul's letter again. Paul. They're following Paul. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will notice the chat room link there, tucked a little over on the rightish of the page, monitored by Kelly Lincoln, Roaring Girl, that personage who runs at the table on Saturdays in the afternoon or early evening, and then later joins up with Ricky for the Round Table Roundhouse Power Hour. That's beginning at midnight on the East Coast, and oh, what a power hour it is indeed. to the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. You will then notice the contribute button. You can become a Patreon to the efforts to resist this terrible orange scourge. Can you become a Patreon? There are various tiers for you to choose from, or you can choose whatever amount you would like. A tier just means that you can get some sort of gift of sorts that you can get in the real world if you'd like to have that, because we have something for you. And your generosity keeps the lights a-blinking here on the modem, and that means that we're paying the bills. And we're just flying a little under the radar. If you don't pay your bills, they can come in and say it's not for political reasons, but you're not paying your bills. But you know it's for political reasons anyway. Okay, so thank you for your generosity, and all kidding aside, yeah, we need the funds. Thank you. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. That's so easy. You can follow Netroots Radio over there on Facebook. We got a Facebook Live thing going, and Kelly's been taking care of that. Thank you, Kelly. You can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. Not Putman, Putnam. We are the higher class of putts. Okay? Don't insult me. All right. And you can also follow me on Daily Coast, because that is where I post the show notes and links diary, which is an integral part to the show. We are a multimedia operation here, indeed. And you can follow the show on Facebook at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, but on Twitter they said we have to be at Cookbook West. So that's where we are on Twitter. And, of course, podcasts can be had by way of Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, iTunes, YouTube, and wherever fine podcasts and not so fine podcasts can be found. Okay, first article up here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Once again, folks, do not put the Old Bay in the chowder. The Old Bay is for the clam bake, all right? Not the Tarrytown Chowder. Don't do it. A little smidgen, not a dash, a smidgen of smoked hot Hungarian paprika will make all the difference. All right, this article is by Brad Reed out of Raw Story. Uzra Zaya, a longtime diplomat who worked at the U.S. State Department for 27 years, has written a damning account of working at Foggy Bottom during the tenure of Donald Trump. Writing at Politico, Zaya says that Trump's State Department is becoming significantly less diverse and is trending back more toward being staffed mainly by white men. Oh, you mean the good old days? Yeah. In 2017, as the media ran out of synonyms for implosion in describing Rex Tillerson's tenure as Secretary of State, a quieter trend unfolded in parallel. The exclusion of minorities from top leadership positions in the State Department and embassies abroad, she writes. This shift quickly became apparent in the department's upper ranks. In the first 5 months of the Trump administration, the department's 3 most senior African-American career officials and the top-ranking Latino career officer were removed or resigned abruptly from their positions, with white successors named in their places. And you can bet your booty they're grifters. Even more alarming, Zaya claims that she was barred from being promoted to certain positions at the State Department under Trump because she did not look like what the president wanted out of his diplomats. In 2 separate incidents, however, colleagues told me that a senior state official opposed candidates for leadership positions, myself and an African-American female officer, on the basis that we could not pass the Breitbart Test, she writes. In conclusion, she cites Trump's past statements about valuing people's looks, as well as his assorted statements disparaging people of color, to say that it's possible that Trump's prejudices have slowly wormed their way through the entire State Department. No one should harbor illusions, however, that a president who relies on central casting to make hiring decisions and routinely disparages African Americans, Muslims, women, and immigrants would champion those who don't resemble him, she writes. Next offering here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, is a maddening article by Rebecca Entralgo out of Think Progress. Just when you think that the just petty evil of people have been achieved, you just look at what ICE is doing lately. I don't know what it is about human beings wanting to torment other human beings, and sometimes in the most petty ways. What's this all about? Some undocumented immigrants living in the U.S. have received fake documents ordering them to arrive at the courthouse at midnight, on weekends, or on dates that don't exist, such as September 31st. And this is according to a report by the Dallas Morning News. According to the outlet, roughly 24 immigrants arrived at a Texas courthouse last week for their hearings, only to be turned away by court staffers who told them their names were not on the docket and they had been given fake dates. The immigrants had been taken into custody during a raid conducted by ICE last month. Some 159 undocumented immigrants, many of them without a criminal record, were detained at the Load Trailer Factory in Sumner, Texas, about 100 miles northeast of Dallas. According to the Morning News, the raid was described by ICE officials as, quote, one of the largest such operations in a single workplace in a decade, end quote. Well, they were working. It's just terrible. Terrible. They were working. I guess because they were taking jobs away from a bunch of white people who just don't want to work. The immigrants were later given their fake court dates by ICE officials who apparently never coordinated with immigration courts to clear the dates, resulting in what advocates have described as chaos. And once again, I remind people that is a feature, not a bug. The immigration court system is confusing enough on a normal day, Ashley Hubner, Associate Director of Legal Services at the National Immigrant Justice Center, told the Morning News. But to have an individual who probably does not speak English and receives a document in which DHS has purposely listed a fake date and time is a real different level of confusion and absurdity. Well, that's a nice way of putting it. I think the proper term is rat fucking. Fake dates, sometimes called dummy dates, are not a phenomena unique to Texas. According to the Morning News, reports of fake court dates have sprung up in Los Angeles, San Diego, Chicago, Atlanta, and Miami. Neither the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees ICE, nor the Justice Department have offered clear explanations for why undocumented immigrants are being handed fake court dates. ICE spokesman Tim Oberle shifted the blame to a court agency known as the Executive Office for Immigration Review, saying it is responsible for setting and resetting appearance dates upon receipt of a notice to appear that was filed by ICE. Yeah, this is the same guy that speaks and shows up at white supremacist meetings. The court debacle comes as the national immigration backlog continues to grow at an astonishing rate. Reports suggest that even without any new arrests, it could take up to 4 years to eliminate the backlog in its entirety. Oh, I have an idea. Let's do what I like to call the Stasi Quo, and we'll just have all of our neighbors turn all of our neighbors in, and then we can volunteer to help maybe staff the prisons. Additionally, ICE has requested $1 billion from the federal government to keep with the Trump administration's demand of detaining an average of 43,000 undocumented immigrants a day. Health and Human Service officials have also requested hundreds of additional beds at juvenile detention camp in Tonillo, Texas, to partly accommodate the surge in detained minors over the past year. Oh, you mean you need more beds for the baby gulag? The current number of children detained in immigration facilities currently stands at nearly 13,000. Of Think Progress brings us this last offering here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Russian-American and European Christian fundamentalists who participated in this last weekend's World Congress of Families, the WCF, want people to know that they are not, in fact, extremists. They are just here for the children. The participants, brought together by the WCF, a joint Russian-American brainchild, started in the 1990s and a continued source of collaboration between those close to the Kremlin and America's far right. Oh, really? Insisted they were merely advocating for love, faith, and family. Oh, you mean like blood and soil? We're often shown as a strange people, like we're homophobic fascists or something. Alexei Komov, who runs sanctioned Russian official Konstantin Malafeev's foundation. Yeah, that's what he said. Or as James Kushner, a U.S.-based religious publisher, told Think Progress, what really motivates people here is the love of the child. I bet. Anybody? I don't know. Let's be careful about what we say. It might come back to haunt you in a court of law, you know. And that may be the case for some of the approximately 2,000 individuals who made the trip to Chisinau, given that the conference's closing ceremonies featured 24 young girls singing a Russian version of We Are the World, while clips of grinning babies cycled through on the giant screen behind them. There was certainly an overwhelming emphasis on the supposed well-being of children throughout the entire weekend. And Moldovan President Igor Dodon even made sure to get in on the action, posing alongside the girls for all to see. Oh my. Speakers and attendees repeatedly emphasized that the threats facing children are everywhere, expanding every day. Governments are pushing the promotion of pornography and homosexuality as an alternative lifestyle. Really? As Croatian organizer Zalika Marchik told listeners, foreign forces across the world are targeting impressionable young ones, including, as Russian activist Alena Agafonova said, USAID, which he claimed is using Russian laws to eliminate so-called traditional values. Or as Agafonova said, when one devil is taken out of a body, 7 others enter. Oh, wow. This sounds like a brainwashing conference, but I don't believe in brainwashing because brainwashing is an easy excuse out for not taking responsibility for your actions. And of course, there's still Satan, continuing his millennia-long quest to turn children to darkness. And the Jews are going to eat them too at night in a cauldron of blood. Along with the children, activists identified other forces bringing them together in Moldova. For one Serbian activist, the WCF conference was necessary to combat aggressive feminism and gender theory. For Maxim Obakov, identified as the godfather of the pro-life movement in Russia, activists needed to focus on the emergence of homosexual marriage, of perverted marriages. Well, I don't know. I mean, one perversion in one person's eyes is, not a perversion in another's. Like, I don't know. Maybe these people think the missionary position is like tying somebody down on a cross and beating the crap out of them with a riding crop while doing the Russian hat dance. Or is that the sword dance? Now, they have a hat dance, too. In light of these dangerous trends, participants on the final day of the conference exhorted one another to support each other and their mutual movements and to support the notion that they can win the ongoing social struggles across the world. And while they acknowledged that campaigns across the West continue to be faltering, far-right Christians from Eastern Europe claimed they had found an answer: faith and the Kremlin. Oh, so that's why people are going. Our fundamental Christians are going to Moscow and have been for a while, since the 90s. Because Russia is going to be their white utopia. Look at all that snow out there, all that ice on the Siberian steppes. The Russian nation carries a very important mission for all nations: to protect truth and the faith. That's why we are grateful to Putin, activist Andrei Zubanekova said. The geopolitics of the conference, the 12th of its kind, were impossible to miss. While WCF decided to pull its sponsorship of a planned 2014 conference for Russia, thanks to Moscow's invasion of the Ukraine, this year's conference featured a number of Russian speakers who were either sanctioned by the U.S. government or directly connected to those sanctioned by Washington. In addition to Komov Natalia Yukonina, married to sanctioned Russian oligarch Vladimir Yukoninin, an alleged WCF funder, made an appearance as a featured speaker, and Russian Duma official Yelena Musalina, also sanctioned by the U.S., managed to show up in person. Well, they're just on a higher mission for God, and God is Vlad. I mean, look at him riding bare-chested on that horse. No one but a god would do that. Okay, we see where this is going, and it's not going to end up well. And I think that we should very well manage to, tamp this down in the proverbial bud, because we do have a separation of church and state. And after the midterms and after the general election, I insist that we return to that. No more religious tests. Especially by, libertine heathens who think that they have the secret of the universe in the palm of their hand. No, they don't. All right, we better get to our break. And when we come back, of course, we will go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to networksradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Hi, I'm Scientific American podcast editor Steve Mirsky, and here's a short piece from the September 2018 issue of the magazine in the section called Advances, Dispatches from the Frontiers of Science, Technology, and Medicine. The article is called Quick Hits, and it's a rundown of some science and tech stories from around the globe, compiled by editorial intern Maya Miller. From China, a chemical that helped to create a hole in the ozone layer is reappearing. An international investigation traced the resurgence of the banned gas, known as CFC-11, to factories in a town in the eastern province of Shandong. From Chile, the National Congress of Chile passed a bill outlining plans to establish a Ministry of Science. The goal is to invest more in research as part of a shift toward an economy of, quote, knowledge and creativity, end quote. From Iraqi Kurdistan, archaeologists found remnants of a city that dates back 4,800 years in the autonomous Kurdish region of northern Iraq. Among the ruins were 92 clay tablets, some of which contained the city's name, Mardaman. From Namibia, about 100 high school girls from Ethiopia, Kenya, and Swaziland joined Girls in Namibia for a 2-week boot camp to learn how to write code and develop mobile apps. They also got a crash course in basic sciences. From Thailand, a pilot whale washed ashore in Thailand's southern Songkhla province with nearly 18 pounds of plastic in its stomach. The whale died 2 days later, renewing concerns about the amount of such waste humans have put into the world's waterways. And from the U.S., a judge dismissed 2 environmental lawsuits against 5 of the world's largest oil companies. During the trial, however, the company's representatives said they recognize and agree with the scientific consensus that humans have caused unprecedented climate changes. That was Quick Hits by Maya Miller.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
What's in a name? By definition, the name of a person, place, or thing is its personal designation, a distinct way of being known to others. Unless, of course, it's the opposite, a label meant to disguise who or what a person or thing really is. In other words, a fake name. Hiding one's true identity can be done for many legitimate reasons, but it's widely used these days by flim-flammers and corporate front groups. For example, Restaurant Workers of America is not made up of waiters, cooks, bartenders, etc. It's a front group for chain restaurant owners who oppose raising the sub-minimum wage of their actual workers. Such AstroTurf citizen groups often hide behind patriotic-sounding names like Americans for Prosperity, to run massive campaigns of deceit to benefit the corporate sponsors at the expense of the public interest. And now, from out west, comes a brand spanking new group, Cowboys for Liberty. What a positive moniker. Cowboys are seen as down-to-earth, straight shooters, and America is all about liberty. But wait, is this just a front for corporations wanting to grab our public lands? Au contraire, as the old cowhands say. It's an audacious, fun-loving network of hell-raising climate change activists who are out to expose, shame, and defeat the corporate-serving profiteers behind the climate denier industry. They chose the cowboy image both to symbolize the true West ethic of defending Mother Nature and as a spoof of the Orwellian perversion of language by dishonest corporate powers. This is Jim Hightower saying, but Cowboys for Liberty is more than a name. It's a public campaign to unveil the shameful, avaricious individuals who are behind climate change pollution, putting their personal wealth and political advancement above the well-being of all other earthlings. Join the campaign at www.whydeny.org.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. With the upheaval caused by war and revolution in 17th century Europe, Thomas Hobbes and John Locke believed that political philosophy needed a new start. They originated natural rights philosophy, which focuses on the rights of individuals. Thomas Hobbes sought to explore ideas about government by imagining a state of nature where there is war of every man against every man, and people fear violent death at the hands of others. Humans would leave the state of nature by entering into a social contract. They would consent to an authoritarian state he called Leviathan, which is ruled by a powerful despot. To maintain peace and order, the Leviathan state must rule through fear. However, the state is established to protect the lives of the people, and their obligations to the state cease if the state ever attacks their lives. Otherwise, the powers of the Leviathan state are unlimited. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
You can help stop the Trump agenda in its tracks. Make sure you're registered to vote. Go to rockthevote.org. And on November 6th, vote for Democrats up and down the ticket. This message, a public service from all the fine people of netrootsradio.com.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1915. That was the day British socialist illustrator Walter Crane died. You have probably seen his Art Nouveau-style illustrations. Many celebrate International May Day, memorialize the Haymarket Martyrs of Chicago, or commemorate the Paris Commune. He also published a series of illustrations titled Cartoons for the Cause. That series was produced to commemorate the International Socialist Trade Union Congress of 1896. Born in 1845, Crane apprenticed with the Chartist radical William James Linton. He started his career illustrating children's books, nursery rhymes, and fairy tales. He later traveled to Italy with his wife Mary to continue with book illustrations and portraiture. Upon his return to Britain, he became friends with artist William Morris, whose pamphlet, Art and Socialism, deeply impacted him. Crane soon joined the Art Workers Guild and the Arts and Crafts Society. Together, he and Morris joined the Social Democratic Federation. Crane produced illustrations for its journal, Justice. From there, he helped to found the Socialist League and illustrated its journal, The Commonwealth. When the League failed to gain popularity, he moved on to the Fabian Society, whose members included George Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells, and Sidney and Beatrice Webb. Crane produced wildly popular images like the Angel of Freedom and published The Claims of Decorative Art. In it, he asserted art could not flourish in a world where wealth was so unfairly distributed. Only under socialism could use and beauty be united. He continued to publish and became principal of the Royal College of Arts in 1898. A strong critic of the British Empire, Crane supported the Labour Party and produced posters each year to celebrate May Day. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
The woman who accused Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of attempting to sexually assault her in a confidential letter to members of Congress has come forward. Christine Blasey Ford, a professor at Palo Alto University, told the Washington Post that she feared Kavanaugh might inadvertently kill her as he held her down and groped her while they were both high school students around 1982. MSNBC's Ali Velshi has more.
Professor Blasey Ford identified herself. Speaking out to the Washington Post, she told the paper that during a summer in the early 1980s, when Kavanaugh was in high school, his friend watched as, quote, Kavanaugh pinned her to a bed and on her back and groped her over her clothes, grinding his body against hers and clumsily attempting to pull off her one-piece bathing suit and the clothing she wore over it, end quote. When she tried to scream, she said he put his hand over her mouth. NBC News has not spoken to her directly. Kavanaugh offered a fresh denial, saying in part, quote, I have never done anything like what the accuser describes to her or to anyone. And a White House official tells NBC News that Kavanaugh says he wasn't even at the party in question. All Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee, as well as one Republican member, say Thursday's vote in Kavanaugh should be delayed. But one Republican member is not changing his mind.
Do you think that any of these claims are legitimate?
No, I don't. I think this woman, whoever she is mixed up.
Wow.
Both Brett Kavanaugh and Christine Blasey Ford will testify at a hearing on Monday. Trump backed his Supreme Court pick despite the allegations, dismissing a reporter's inquiry about whether Kavanaugh had offered to withdraw his nomination as a, quote, ridiculous question.
With all of it being said, we want to go through a full process. I have great confidence in the U.S. Senate and in their procedures and what they're doing, and I think that's probably what they're going to do. They'll go through a process and hear everybody out. I think it's important. I believe they think it's important. But again, he is one of the great intellects and one of the finest people that anybody has known. You look at his references, I've never seen anything quite like it. So they'll go through that process and we'll get it done. I don't know. It depends on the process. I'd like to see a complete process. I'd like everybody to be very happy. Most importantly, I want the American people to be happy because they're getting somebody that is great. I want him to go in at the absolute highest level. And I think to do that, you have to go through this. If it takes a little delay, it'll take a little delay. It shouldn't certainly be very much.
Democrats are demanding an FBI investigation of Ford's allegations and evidence. Stay tuned. The flooding from Florence continues to wall up North and South Carolina. The death toll Tuesday morning was at least 32 in 3 states. The cost in the Carolinas alone could reach $22 billion. Responding to calls from House conservatives to release information tied to the Department of Justice's handling of the Russia probe, Donald Trump on Monday ordered the declassification of documents and text messages he believes can bolster his assertion that former FBI Director James Comey, former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, former FBI Special Agent Peter Strzok, and Justice official Bruce Orr took investigatory steps that were politically biased against his candidacy in 2016. The president also ordered the release of a federal court order that approved surveillance of former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. NBC's Ken Delanian reports.
This is not normal. And that's what I'm focusing on right now. Having not seen the actual documents that have been declassified, I've never before seen a statement from the White House ordering the declassification of something that the intelligence agencies were not ready to declassify. And that's going to have huge repercussions, I think. Look, there are reasons that these agencies have not yet been signed off on making this information public. There could be reasons of sources and methods and other sensitivities. And the president has the absolute authority to declassify anything he wants. But the idea that he's doing that potentially over the objection of his own agencies is incredible. Now, what they're doing here, I was just listening to a speech that Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, gave a day or so ago where he was predicting that this would happen. They are trying to establish that the FISA warrant on Carter Page was almost entirely the product of the Christopher Steele dossier. To me, this whole thing has moved so far from that at this point, with a cooperation agreement from the president's campaign chairman and so many other people who have been convicted and are now cooperating with this investigation, that Carter Page FISA seems almost irrelevant at this point. But it's become a bête noire on Fox News and other places to show that this investigation is illegitimate. And Donald Trump has now taken a very dramatic step to advance that cause.
At the Emmy Awards Monday night, Best Actress in a Comedy winner Rachel Brosnahan for The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel gave an important, though non-controversial, bit of political advice.
And one of the things I love the most about this show, while I have you captive for another 2 seconds, is that it's about a woman who's finding her voice anew. And it's something that's happening all over the country right now. One of the most important ways that we can find and use our voices is to vote. So if you haven't already registered, do it on your cell phone right now. Vote, show up, and bring a friend to the polls. Thank you so much.
And that's a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com/donate.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. The U.S. accused Russia of systematically violating sanctions on North Korea on Monday, telling fellow members of the UN Security Council such actions reduce the likelihood of pressuring Kim Jong-un to surrender his nuclear weapons. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley.
Every time the Security Council overlooks sanctions violation, every time we allow the Russians to bury evidence of violations, we remove incentives of Pyongyang to end its nuclear program.
Haley cited several instances of Russia's alleged sanctions violation, including ship-to-ship oil and coal transfers off the North Korean coast, which she said have allowed the Kim regime to far surpass its yearly allowable oil imports.
We think they've obtained 4 times the annual quota in the first 8 months of this year.
So why would Russia, which has voted 11 times to impose sanctions on North Korea, violate those very sanctions? Haley said the answer is money, or economic development. Given that Russia's Far East has, as she put it, few economic opportunities, increased trade with North Korea looms as a tempting possibility. Russia wants new markets for its Siberian coal, Haley said, and envisions a railway to take its exports through North Korea and toward major ports in South Korea where it could find international buyers. Haley seemed to acknowledge the long-term merits of such a plan, but said Russia needs to wait to realize its vision.
It isn't time yet to relieve the pressure on North Korea, no matter how lucrative it is for Russia. As we have all agreed to, that time comes with denuclearization, not before.
For his part, Russia's ambassador to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia, condemned the Trump administration's maximum pressure strategy against North Korea, saying, quote, "Sanctions cannot replace diplomacy." Luke Vargas, The United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. And it's never too early in the week to have a French 77, so we always have them mixed and ready to pour. That's right. So, we always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Fairly mild overnight temperatures, I would say. The weather station that I've been culling these reports from in the last, since, I don't know, the end of last week, towards the end of last week, has been more at altitude. The one that I normally get, which isn't really that close after all. The one that's at altitude is closer, but it is at altitude. So the one that is down the road a ways, for whatever reason, is not reporting. So I'm not able to call averages from it. But I do have my own weather station here. It's just not hooked into the digital underground weather underground. But here at the mother station, 55 degrees. And looks like we will be going up to about the same temperatures we had yesterday, which was around 78 degrees. So balmy compared to what it used to be. Winds right now are a negligible 1 mile per hour out of the northwest. Will be shifting. Let's see. Oh, no, they won't shift. They'll stay out of the northwest and will remain light and variable, though later tonight they will increase to 5 to 10 miles per hour. The scouring winds is how I like to refer to them as. And a little bit of a percentage of precipitation possibility tonight. And I always hold out hope because the smallest may turn into 100%. You just add a 0. And then it's 100%. We like that. Ragweed pollen is high. The air quality index is good and actually gone down from yesterday. It's now at 33 parts per million. And that daytime UV index is falling as well. It's in the moderate range, but now at 5, down from yesterday's 6. Pressure is remaining steady in the region right now at 30.32 inches. Visibility is up to 30 miles per hour. And relative humidity is at 84%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchase. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Okay. Yeah, I had to choke that out somehow, but I did. London is 72 and mostly cloudy. Paris is 73 degrees with a rain shower. Rome is 83 and partly cloudy with a thunderstorm and electrical storm advisory that could knock out critical infrastructure. So beware. Kiev is 73 and fair. Kabul is 75 degrees and fair. Bad wedding weather. Don't go out. It could be raining drone bombs. Please, don't go. Hong Kong is 78 and partly cloudy. Wow. Tokyo is 71 with heavy rain, and they have a flood advisory, well, because they're getting hit by a typhoon. Sydney, Australia is 63 and clear. San Francisco, California is 55 and mostly cloudy. And New York is 77 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy with a flash flood watch. Wow. Do people have kayaks in downtown New York? I don't think so. Well, stay dry, stay high. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Mike Stone, writing for Reuters, brings us this first offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Remember, folks, no Old Bay in the chowder. The Old Bay goes for the clam bake, not in the chowder. Please. The U.S. Air Force estimated startup costs for a proposed U.S. Space Force, a new military service backed by Donald Trump, will be around $13 billion in the first 5 years, according to a Department of Defense memo seen by Reuters. Only $13 billion. You can't feed kids, and you can't, help farmers. No. People lost their homes in the crash? Can't, no way. But $13 billion for a boondoggle? Yeah. There's a way of siphoning off a lot of that money, if not all. The Air Force, the U.S. military branch that takes responsibility for space, authored the September 14th memo outlining a proposal for a lethality-focused organization that will field space superiority capabilities. Well, we're no longer into exploration now, are we? We're into conquering wherever we go. We'll be like the conquistadors, and we'll land on like far-off worlds, and then we'll give them syphilis and the flu, and then take their riches. The Trump administration in August announced an ambitious plan to usher in the force as the sixth branch of the military by 2020. Of course, it would require congressional approval. Well, there's always that. The Pentagon memo was written by Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson, a former member of Congress from New Mexico. The memo estimated that creating a space force will cost in excess of $3 billion in the first 12 months and an additional $10 billion needed over the following 4 years. Now, the U.S. Air Force estimated that there could be more than 13,000 people in the new Department of the Space Force. Oh, yeah, hanging on jobs. We have to keep killing people on the Earth, and since we're killing so many people on the Earth, we got to try to kill things elsewhere. And you know what? It'll create jobs.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Tana Ganova of Raw Story brings us this last offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. As a juxtaposition to how much money they just love to throw away into outer space, which I actually think that going in outer space is not throwing away money, but military boondoggles, come on. $800 million for a toilet seat? I think that's a bit steep, don't you think? Well, they also have an excuse for not feeding poor people. And Republican lawmakers have cited the Old Testament to justify policies like zero tolerance at the southwest border, which resulted in the forced separation of children from their parents. Yeah, because it said so in the Old Testament. Yeah. As the left-wing religion blog Religious Dispatches observed, that's hardly the only time Republicans have used the Bible to push through regressive legislation. The Farm Bill, set to expire this month, includes new onerous work requirements for recipients of food stamps. Right now, adults between the ages of 18 and 49 who don't have kids have to work to get SNAP like they aren't already. The new legislation expands that to people between 50 and 59 and adults who have kids older than 6. Conservatives tend to go to a Bible verse in Paul's second letter to the Thessalonians. Anyone willing to work should not eat. Yeah, except, I don't know. It's not that simple, folks. I mean, do you really think that it's easy being poor? Do you know how much work is involved in being poor? Oh, my God. And what? You're going to say that the mom who is working her butt off trying to take care of some kids at home who are starving is not working while she's doing that? And I don't mean like punching a time clock. Likewise, a parent caring for children over 6 or someone who doesn't have an internet connection and thus can't log in their hours in the benefit program's database will make it even far more challenging to log in to say, yeah, I've been working. You have to have an internet connection to be able to get food stamps now. How nice. And then they whine because, oh, these people have an iPhone. No, they don't. It's an Android. It's probably like an... It just... First of all, do not follow Paul. First he was Saul. Look him up. All right? And quoting Paul is probably not a good idea. All right? He was a murderous thug. All right, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But not Netroots Radio, because it broadcasts on with all the breaking news. Oh my God. So much more breaking news than we can stand. We'll visit with you tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesday, speaking of religious, holidays dishes. And but do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day through the night. And we will visit with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.